What's up, Nightwalkers? I've got another review video for you. The Pulsar Trail XQ38. For the last 6 months or so, I've been checking out all the different thermal devices out there, handhelds, weapon sights, clip-on devices, and just trying to find the right one that fits our needs the best before taking the money out of our pocket and buying one. Because as you know, if you're in the market for one of these, and you probably are if you're watching this video, they can be quite expensive. So you obviously want to make the right decision, when you decide to purchase one. I'm going to go over the features we were looking for in a thermal device, why we decided on the Pulsar, and what we like and don't like about it. And hopefully this will give you some ideas of things to add to your list so that when you decide to purchase one, you can make the best decision for you. Being a night vision enthusiast, obviously I've been around thermal devices. I've had opportunities to look through different types of devices over the years, but I'm in no means an expert on these. I never really had an interest to get one. Because the kind of money that you got to spend to get a decent one, I just would have rather bought another Gen 3 device. But what changed that mindset for us is we split our time between living in a city and then living in a remote rural location. And living remotely, you have a lot more interaction with wildlife. And that's everything from pests like mice to predators like mountain lions and coyotes and things like that. So living, every time we come out remotely, I always bring the Gen 3 devices anyways. And that's helped us, keep an eye on certain things, but it does have its limitations for sure. And so that's where the thermal comes in. And after, borrowing one and even trying out that Scout TK that you saw in the other review video, it's pretty evident that we could benefit from having a thermal device. And so that's what started the idea of looking for one of these and coming up with the list of features that we wanted. The features we were looking for, and potentially budget or cost isn't a feature, but I'm going to throw it in there. So the first thing was we wanted to be in the $3,000 or less price range, and so that was the number one thing for us. And then the next thing was resolution. In that price range, we wanted the best resolution available, so that if you see something out there, you can clearly identify what it is. Plus, having a better resolution device, it just makes it more enjoyable to use it, so you'll use your device more. Then the third thing was the ability to record video and take photos, not just for the channel, but just for ourselves. It's a lot of fun to do that. The fourth thing was batteries. We wanted the ability to quick change batteries to keep the device in service longer. Versus like with an internal battery, once it's down, the device you're taking out of service until you get it charged back up, at least to operating levels. And then the last thing was the ability to weapon mount. Initially, that wasn't necessarily on my list, but if you could get that in that same price range, why not get it? This gives you more options on how to use your device. So the Pulsar Trail XQ38, it hit everything in our feature list. Budget-wise, it was a bit more. It was about $3,200 for us, brand new, which $200 more than our target budget is great for what you're getting in this device. You get a lot of features for that price point. And then resolution-wise, this 384 17 micron core with this focus knob ability, so you can focus for distance, is huge. And plus the base magnification. With the base mag being 2.1. Versus some of the other devices which are below 2, sometimes closer to 1.5 or whatnot. Anything up to 100 yards and even beyond. And then with the focus knob even closer, I can see really well. And so that 2.1 base mag works great, and especially with the picture-in-picture mode, which is available on this model, works stellar. And what I mean by that is, so let's say you're looking at, whether it's a coyote or whatever it is you're trying to look at. So your 2.1 base mag is how you see it, and that image is going to be really clear, with this core. And then when you turn on the picture-in-picture mode, you'll get this little PIP window that shows up on the top of the image. And I'll show you all that on the device itself later on in the video. So when that PIP window pops up, your target reticule is going to be right in the center of that. And having that zoom ability, so let's say you're 2.1, that PIP will be at 4.2 automatically. and you could zoom it again to 8.4, but really the 4.2 works really good. And so with the main image being 2.1, you know, you can definitely see everything else around you, so you have more you know, more depth of field and awareness of your surroundings, you know, at least side to side to what you're looking at. And then a small PIP window, you can get a more accurate shot since you can line up the reticule more on the target itself. The internal recording capability of the trail model is awesome. And so just by pressing this button right here, I can, you know, start recording, or if I go to picture mode, I can take a snapshot. And so that's great. And it also has the ability with the trail model, gunshot activated recording. And so that's pretty slick to where, you know, once it detects the sound of that gunshot, it'll start filming right away. And so that's really great if you're trying to film a hunt or something like that. I remember seeing reports that the microphone didn't work so good, and you know, there's the mic right there. In fact, I believe on the first trail models, the mic didn't work at all. But I can tell you on this one, and I just purchased this one maybe 4 months ago, the mic works great, and it's very easy to watch the images and hear the sounds because this has Wi-Fi capability. So you can use the app on your smartphone and actually preview the videos and download them to the device. I haven't had any luck, to be honest with you, getting the videos or actually the images I could do, but I can't get the videos from my iPhone using the app to anywhere else. So all I do for that is I just simply, you know, use this cable right here and just plug it into my PC, and that's how I get my videos off of it. The rechargeable battery on the trail model it's almost worth it just by itself to get that over the Apex model. And so, you know, the Apex model's a bit less in price compared to the trail, but you know what, this removable battery, I think they claim 8 hours of use, you know, time on this battery, and I don't doubt that. I mean, I've had this thing on so much before in the course of a night to where I've never ran out of battery, and generally, even using it every night, I very rarely have to recharge it. Whereas if with the external 123s or external batteries, I mean, I couldn't even imagine how pissed off I would get having to change batteries out every night or every other day. Whereas with this thing, it just holds up. Plus, you know, just by quickly doing this, if you have spare batteries, you can just very easily put this thing back in service, and it's going to be faster than actually trying to get 123s in and out. And so that's great. And besides that capability, another thing with the batteries that's really nice, being removable like this and rechargeable, is when it's time to charge up your device, or in this case, charge up your device's battery, you know, just by doing this, now I can have this plugged into the charger and have it on a table, and I'm not as worried about this thing getting damaged. Whereas, you know, if this was, let's say if this was an internal battery device, and now I have this whole thing sitting on a table with a cable plugged into it, that's just more of a chance of this whole thing, let's say, getting yanked down on accident by hitting the cable and dropping it. Whereas if that happened and it was just the battery, oh well, I could buy another battery. The weapon mount capability of the device is awesome as well. Pulsar gives you just a generic mount that goes on there, and the reviews are really bad. It's a thumb screw style, and I can see why people don't like that mount. I could see the potential for that thing not to hold zero and just to be a pain in the ass to take off and on. I got this thing with the Pulsar QD mount on it itself, and so this thing's been pretty good. I mean, I'll have to say I was skeptical at first, but after getting this adjusted right for the top of my rail on my AR-15, I can say that after zeroing it and removing the device and putting it back on and reshooting it, that the zero stayed where it was supposed to be at. So I'm pretty impressed with this Pulsar QD mount. It came with this padded case from Pulsar, and it does a pretty good job of holding the device and like the charger and all the other stuff that came with it. I was a little skeptical of using it because it's not, you know, it's not heavily padded, but it actually does the job pretty good. This particular model comes with this remote, and the remote does some basic functions on it. To be honest with you, I don't see why I would use this thing, but it is there. This is the standard mount that comes with the Trail, with the XQ38. I mean, as you can see, it's not the highest quality. Likes and dislikes. The first thing I'm going to do is go over the dislikes, because pretty much everything I just talked about are all likes. So there's not a whole lot more I can really go into about that in terms of likes, other than to say this thing is freaking awesome. One thing I discovered that sucks is I can't keep my BMVDs on in the down position with the iPod rotated up and the thermal at the same time. And what I mean by that is if I have my BMVDs on, and let's say, you know, this Pulsar is on my gun and my gun's on a tripod, and I'm using my BMVDs to scan around for targets. Let's say I see a target and I want to take a shot without flipping my NVDs up. Ideally, you could just rotate your iPod up or your you know, your tube up. In my case, it'd be the right side one. I could rotate it up and then come down onto the scope to see the display and take a shot. Well, I can't do that. I have to flip up my BMVDs in the stowed position, which in that case, I either have to turn them off or I have to put them in the second on position so they turn off when they're stowed, so I don't have more light coming down. Because if I leave them down, what happens is the plate that contains the power supply and all the electronics for the tubes, that makes contact here on the thermal scope. And so it's doable. I mean, if I really had to take a shot, I mean, I would do it, but I just don't want to scratch up, you know, either device too bad. Mainly the main thing I'm worried about is I don't want to damage the battery cap on the BMVD SG, because that battery cap is plastic. It seems like it nukes itself a lot in terms of, you know, nuking is when it calibrates itself. And I recommend leaving it on auto. You know, I've tried doing manual nuking, I've tried doing semi-manual, but the image just suffers all the time. So it's just easier to leave it on auto. Just be prepared with this device that if you're using it scanning around or on a weapon mount, be prepared for this thing to nuke itself, the eyepiece. So it's not shuttered, so you're always getting light coming back from the eyepiece splashing back at you. And since I use this handheld a lot and I have it hanging from my neck, there's always light coming back up and just hit me in the face. And when you're in the middle of nowhere at night, it's just really obvious, especially when it's really dark with no moon. So you have to hit this power button. You hold it down for half a second or so, and it turns off the display, which I'm glad they added that feature. And then to put the display back on, you just tap the button again, and then the display comes back up. And so at least they have that in there, but I'd prefer if it had a shuttered eye guard, to be honest with you. I've tried using the PVS-14 shuttered eye guard, but it doesn't fit. The diameter's too wide on this eyepiece on the Pulsar. I even tried trimming one and cutting it down, and I inserted it inside the opening of this eye guard, and it kind of worked, but it does have an issue of constantly falling out of it. This dislike, I'm not sure if it's a dislike or if it's just a feature set I wish it had, but it's not a deal breaker for me, and it shouldn't be for any of you guys. But the Pulsar is the only display in white hot and in black hot modes, which those are the two most popular modes, and that's probably what you're going to mainly use it in. But it would be nice if it had some other color palettes, such as FLIR. I mean, even the Pulsar Helions, you know, they're handheld models, they have more color palettes available to them as well. The last thing with the Trail that I don't like about it is just its use as a handheld. And obviously it's a weapon sight, so it wasn't designed to be a handheld, but I knew there's going to be some compromises with it. So what I do to get around it, you know, when I say it's not so great as a handheld, it's pretty large. So it's, you know, there's a lot of weight there, and it does swing around a bit. So if you're wearing it around your neck handheld, and you know, you got a rifle slung or you've got some other stuff on you, you just have to be mindful that this thing could swing around. So you don't want it to have a hard impact against a piece of metal, against the lens cap, or you got to be careful that you don't have something maybe hanging off your belt that may scratch the lens. So whenever I hang it on my neck, I always make sure this lens cap is closed. And what I did to make it a handheld and work better and have some protection with a lanyard is I took this pick rail I had laying around that has the QD swivel slots on it, and I basically just use this in the QD and some paracord around the sling attachment, and that's what I use to hang around my neck. And then if I'm going to stick it on my tripod or on my weapon that's on my tripod, all I got to do is take this off, and now I can stick it on my gun and I'm good to go. To wrap up the video, I'll have to say that I do not regret buying the Pulsar Trail XQ38 at all. I don't have buyer's remorse. I don't wish I bought a different thermal device. This thing does everything that I wanted to do. Of course, like anything else, you know, you're going to wish it did some other stuff that some other devices do, but in the end, you know, for the price point and for the features available to me, This thing gives me all those things that I want together, and it's the best compromise for us. So, you know, the better image, the focusability, internal recording, removable battery, you know, QD mount, weapon mount, handheld, just all the stuff that I just went over is what I really like about this device over other ones out there. So until something else comes along that's better than this at that price point, I think this is the one I'm going to keep. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest content as we make it. We do appreciate your feedback, so please share with us anything that you have in the comments, and thanks for watching the video.
You look like Dog the Bounty Hunter.